Nightshade. Look at Wordy actually laddering on his account. Rookie move. Still a best of 3. Still in the PvPs as well. I chose the Protoss side of the bracket because I'm secretly a Protoss player. In the bottom right, as the red Protoss, it is ShowTime. In the top left, as the blue Protoss, it is Ting's Neeb. Nerd neck. I'm pretty sure that's the official term for it. Yeah. Not only do I not have great posture, which I've been working on, but I also wore nothing but ponytails when I was younger, and I've always wondered how much that like affected it. You think about all the times that I've sat down with a ponytail, and it literally is a physical like barrier between you and actually sitting up straight against a wall or a chair or like a car seat or something like that. I wonder how much that affected it. When I say I wore ponytail all the time when I was like, I mean literally every single day. I did not start letting my hair down until I was like literally letting my hair down until college, I guess. Yeah. So for probably like 10 years, nothing but ponytails. Not something you can really study though. And if you do, it's probably some inhumane way, like getting a child and forcing her to wear a ponytail and purposefully giving her proper, spine problems. That's not very nice. Or a guy. Guys can have ponytails too. It was very typical of me. Sexist. Check out Idra. Well, Idra started bodybuilding when he was on EG, actually. Like, I know that Idra is, like, he literally got into weightlifting. He was weightlifting to be healthier, and, the EG house, they were all doing it, so it was just a nice thing to do. He was getting more jacked, because, first of all, compare Idra when he was in Brood War and compare Idra when he was in Starcraft 2. Big difference right then and there. Yeah, then he actually got into, like, competitive weightlifting. Good for him, but he is very jacked. Yeah, for sure. I've met a couple of jacked Starcraft players. There's like fit Starcraft players, like ShowTime, very healthy, proper posture and all that. And then there's like jacked, like what was it, Slivko? Is that his name? Was that the guy? Yeah. Anyways, PvP. It's a treat, isn't it? Neeb scouting every which way with a double stalker. Okay, double stalker, double probe. I was like, how does he have 4 stalkers already? Yeah, but he did go for 4 stalkers. They're just popping out now. But he was pretty on point about scouting versus mana as well, with all the probes running around everywhere. Showtime's not doing a proxy. He did the fake pylon, just put it somewhere that's hopefully not going to be found, because if they find it and confirm it's fake, then they don't have to worry about it. So you don't want to be found. But unfortunately, this is not going well for Neeb. Not just losing 1 stalker for nothing, nada so far, but he also doesn't get to scout that natural nexus, which would tell him to stop worrying. Now, as time goes on, as he realizes it's only 4 stalkers, God forbid there's a pylon right here about to warp in 3 more stalkers, he's going to realize, it wasn't a big deal. But this has already forced him to go for a Stargate, probably just flashbacks to Mana Nam. That's a play on flashbacks to Vietnam. Didn't really work out. And is going for a Stargate, which is fine, but also started a Void Ray for a fairly long amount of time. I think it was chronoed as well. Bit of a waste. A bit. Maybe it wasn't chronoed. That's a fresh chrono on that Oracle. But the point is, he does change it over to the Oracle. So making something out of... not nothing, but that Void Ray would not have been useful in a straight-up macro game. Oracle's going to be a better choice. A little bit of damage. Little bit. Even with the Hallucinated Phoenix scouting, it's still a little bit of damage, most likely. And, of course, a lot of scouting. So, Hallucinated Phoenix could still come out, of course. Especially if it is a macro game and you don't have any reason to use Force Fields or Guardian Shield. But Oracle should be getting plenty of scouting for him. Showtime has already gotten a worker lead, though. Again, going back to what I described in that Mana Neeb series. Like, the really sucky thing is that if you don't take a potential threat seriously, you could die to the potential threat. If you do take it seriously, you could die just because you get out macroed pretty severely in a matchup that doesn't have a lot of comeback opportunity. I don't want to say that it's straight up just like you lose, right? It's not like the rock, paper, scissors everyone says it is. Like, I did this and I lost. That sucks. Next time I'll go scissors. But it is pretty impactful. Where Banelings can really change it. Ling run buys. Again, Terran, Doom drops, Siege tanks, how they work. Can all be ways you come back even with the same amount of units, same amount of possibilities. PvP, just not so much. Everything's so expensive. You're reduced down to a couple of choices and a couple of things you can work with. But if the macro game goes on, then that lead earlier that you lost or gained or whatever starts to diminish. And that's what Neeb would hope for. Neeb, maybe not hoping so much for that, but actually trying to go for a greedy third is not going to do that. ShowTime does not have a lot of powerful units. We see no Immortals on the field. Okay, one just popped. Oh, what the hell? Oh, I thought that was Neeb's. I was so confused. ShowTime is rallying his Immortal across the map. Well, that works. That's what's really scary, though. I was just going to say, without an Immortal, this is probably holdable for Neeb, but with an Immortal, that's suddenly a lot scarier. The Warp Prism is a lot scarier, but it's one or the other. ShowTime did not have a lot of time working with that Robo, and the Immortal looks like it came too late. Tons of Force Field went down, allowing Neeb Zealots to actually make those connections with the units. And this was actually a bit of a disaster for ShowTime. A complete disaster for ShowTime. I don't think he was wrong thinking that he could delay that Nexus. He probably saw it and was like, hey, F you. I'm not going to let you have that. And his army was about the same size as his opponent. The Immortal seemed like it might be able to come just in the nick of time, but it was wrong. And that leaves him down a third Nexus, down 11 probes, down an army supply. ShowTime actually, I think, just lost the game, basically. As well as all of you just lost the game. Ha! Throwback. High school. Anyone have tips to overcome nerd neck? Fix your shoulders, fix your posture. And then you actually have to look up exercises to do to reset your brain, basically. But there are a ton of videos online about it. So, take your pick. Alright, shield battery's coming down. I think Neeb knows how desperate ShowTime is. ShowTime knows how desperate he has to be. He has to do something, but it's probably not going to work out very well. I'm not actually sure that... This is why I've been confused for so long, by the way. Never crossed the nameplates. I feel like ShowTime might be able to do something here, but he also maybe could have just backed off. If he does not back off, he fully commits. Zealot's going a bit favorably there for Neeb because he's able to reinforce so much faster despite the Warp Prism being on the front lines. Neeb actually taking the fight away from his shield batteries, though. Like, initially, the Zealots were working out for him okay, because he could reinforce faster, but that Warp Prism didn't actually die. Now he's forced to pull probes against the Archons. That's never a good sign. Oracle trying to be used desperately to help out, and it's actually not helping out so bad. Warp Prism used to ferry the Archons back as opposed to warping in more Zealots. Now going to go for the Warp in. The Phoenix going to try and kill that, but it's not going to work out. 16 probes have died, and ShowTime actually won with this push. The reason I said I don't know if he's actually going to commit to it is because he had started +2, I thought. Maybe that was Neeb, though, because I just swapped it. But he had started a third Nexus. That much I was sure about. That he had started a third Nexus. That maybe he would just posture and try and do something with the Warp Prism. But taking that fight, a bold move, but one that ended up being correct. And a lot because Neeb wanted to take the fight himself, thought he would be okay. So he took it away from the shield batteries, or thought that he had to, because he realized he had left his natural open. And if the natural's compromised, 2 production facilities are gone, the main's compromised, all of his tech and structures are gone. Obviously, it's a tough decision to make, but that Warp Prism just got sniped by that Phoenix. Now ShowTime up in the main has the ramp advantage, but doesn't have any way of reinforcing his army, whereas Neeb, despite losing as many probes as he had, more probes going down in the main base as well, actually still had enough economy to make enough army to combat ShowTime's. He takes out most of it. The recall was somewhat successful, saves like an Archon and a Stalker basically, so I'm not sure if it was totally successful. Probably should have done that as soon as that Warp Prism died. But this has gotten really weird. Neeb is down 12 probes. He actually would have been even probe-wise if it wasn't for the zealots in the main base. That's shocking to me, but that's the case. He does still manage to fit in that +2. He didn't feel the need to cancel it. Well, he didn't think about canceling it. Now he has an upgrade advantage with an army supply advantage as well. They are both in such difficult positions. ShowTime, after losing the army fight in the third, I thought was a goner. Makes it almost work with the attack. But now it's still going to be behind in the army supply, behind in that upgrade. He has bought enough time, just with Neeb having to move across the map and wait for a Warp Prism. He has bought enough time that maybe his armor supply won't be so bad. He's trying to set up a decent position as well. Probably chronoing this +2, not thinking about it currently. He has 2 shield batteries himself on his third base now. Reverse roll. This is actually reverse engagement. But this time the shield batteries are being used. One of them does go down basically immediately. The concave slightly better there for ShowTime. But Neeb pulling back. Most of the zealots have been depleted. +2 working wonders for Neeb's army right now. Probes going down for ShowTime. The last of his army desperate to try and hold. No way to reach back into that Warp Prism to stop the reinforcements. If he did that, maybe, just maybe, he could hold. His own Warp Prism comes through to try and help out against the Archons, but it's not going to work out. Neeb does take game number 1, which I said he was supposed to after that first attack, but damn, that got close. Did not think that was going to be as close as it was. Yeah, big oof on losing that Warp Prism. Didn't realize it was being targeted. Oh, Ziggy, you blended in right there. You blended in. I'm gonna get a white couch next time. Let Apollo blend in. Hello. You're being silly. You done? Alright. Oh, never gonna make that mistake again. It's been a while since I haven't swapped the nameplates. The fact that GSL doesn't do that just, oh my god. So bothersome, so bothersome. Anyways. Bottom left of Everdream, it's the Red Protoss ShowTime. Top right, actually taking that last game, despite a little blip. It is the Blue Protoss Neeb. PvP can be such a fun matchup. I totally understand the frustrations on the player side of things. It's kind of an absurd matchup that I can feel... I can be empathetic that it's, you know, I understand people who have like a defeatist attitude toward it, but watching it's actually quite fun. Watching it also seems to give that perception, I think, to me at least, that it's actually not that bad. But I know as a player, I understand everyone's, with whatever Protoss talks about, why it's so absurd. And why it's not just absurd because it is absurd, it's also absurd because you think of no way to fix it. There's not something that's super easy to fix it. PvP has been tampered with occasionally because of because of PvP. But oftentimes I think it's just affected by things that you tamper with for other matchups. One of the biggest changes that happened was the hallucination reduction cost. You say hallucination, you think of Phoenix. I don't know what to tell you. But the cost of it, the energy cost of it being reduced, did change things. But you think that providing more scouting would help a matchup where so many things are dependent on the tech structures you choose. Apparently not. It didn't really help it. It just people just got more clever about, you know, earlier things, earlier cheeses and earlier ways of tricking your opponent and all that. So kind of helped a little bit at least. Neeb goes for a proxy robo. Speaking of trickery, Neeb totally capable of mixing it up, going for the cheese, going for the all-ins. Occasionally we even find a Neeb on a weird day where he does nothing but cheese and all-in. It's like that day he chose to practice his all-ins or something like that. But we do usually consider Neeb a macro player, as well as ShowTime. You think two macro players going up against each other. They both have really started to add in these types of things. ShowTime actually finds the robo. Not something that Neeb's gonna have to worry about losing necessarily, but now... Wait. Okay, he definitely saw it. But now he has to worry that ShowTime will actually be prepared. Now, ShowTime not gonna go for the Stargate response, which is nice. Now we get to see two different responses to the proxy robo. Very similar to what Mana did on this map, except Mana proxied it like up here, wasn't it? So this is a little bit closer. Closer you can get it. I mean, you would think the easier it is to scout, but also quick reinforcements can be a big difference. Robo to robo. So when I'm going to talk about the defender's advantage, oh god. Defender's advantage is a little tricky in PvP, right? It's actually one of the biggest criticisms of Starcraft 2 was what they gave Warp Gate to PV, to Protoss. Took away defender's advantage to an extent. Kind of fix it with a pylon change, of course. Having a dedicated entire gateway is quite expensive, but it is still a little bit weird. And again, going to the whole idea, like, you don't actually just have that much as a Protoss player. Your early game production is not that convincing, unlike a Zerg who has 3 hatcheries and a billion larvae and can do anything they want. But this is really tricky. Speaking of production, I was talking about it for both of them. Thought that ShowTime would have struggled to produce. It was actually Neeb. Neeb has his production cut. 4 stalkers just somehow dodging to the middle of the map without being seen. Get the pylon, cancel 2 warp ins. Now on top of the pylon of the robo, Neeb finding himself in a disaster. Like, this has actually turned so wrong for him. ShowTime has actually shown the 3-gate response to a proxy robo before, but usually it's this response that's strong because he literally stops the robo. You know, he actually kills the pylon before an immortal pops out or something like that. In this case, I mean, it still helped him. He still had enough units defensively as well as offensively to do what he just did, but man, that's tricky. Extra tricky because while Neeb had a good idea to power that robo, he was actually supply blocked. Very awkwardly. Decides not to use it. Adept harassment, not a terrible idea at all. Not at all. But it's gotta be careful. There's a lot of dead space here. I think he's fine. You could also recall. Pylon block from ShowTime blocks out the Nexus. Any attempt at transferring is going to be difficult. Transitioning is going to be difficult to do. Going to take out that robo for surezies this time. Pylon's going to go down for ShowTime, so aha, gotcha. That's fair. UDPC Bra, thank you for the tier 1 sub to Prometheum. Much appreciated. Oh, this is the double immortal drop. Nasty stuff. Kills probes pretty quickly, kills production pretty quickly, and that's the scary part. And the one thing you would do against the War Prism Stalkers also get killed very quickly by immortals. It's nasty. It's also extremely dangerous. And I do think that is important to note because while Hussein Phoenix is over here, it doesn't matter so much. Void Ray. Void Ray, much more important. Coming out here for Neeb. There have been games where a kind of like random, quote-unquote, Stargate has gone down, kind of like in a mid-game where you wouldn't expect it. And apparently, like, it is legitimately necessary in some situations. Maybe not necessary, but very strong, I'll say, in some situations, where warp prisms are the bane of your existence. A Void Array actually shuts down a warp prism pretty effectively. Very effectively. So, I don't know if that's why he went for a Stargate. He does have a Void Ray. And he has a push as well. Neeb not really probing up that natural base, even as it finishes, still on 23 workers. Instead, looking for an attack. Armor supply, not too different. ShowTime could run back to the natural, but he wants to buy as much time as possible in the front lines with a couple of force fields. Exactly. Hallucination, actually going into the Void Rays. That's tricky. ShowTime does not have an observer. He could be tricked by that. Even if he's not tricked, his units are. They will just free fire in any of these Void Rays, who sent it or not, without an observer. Force field's getting very awkward for Neeb. Continued to be denied access to that high ground, but finally allowed to be free! And he still has a decent number of force fields himself. Actually, ShowTime starting to run out here. Warping a couple more sentries, try and help out against the Adepts too. But the Adepts taking a lot of those shots from the Immortals. They're also dying, but more importantly, the Void Rays aren't dying. Forget about the ground army. What about these Void Rays? Not much is going to be able to kill them. Stalker's stuck on the ramp. Phoenix not going to be strong enough to actually kill the Void Rays. They're getting a little bit low. Well, one is getting a little bit low. But Neeb is actually just powering through here. He's cornered ShowTime's army behind his own Nexus. Is going to kill off the rest of the Phoenix. One Void Ray does finally go down, but all the Phoenix die in the attempt. They will not be able to grab that War Prism of Neeb. ShowTime can't even get up to his main base, desperately elevatoring into his own main to save his units. Trying to juggle this to victory, but there's still so many Stalkers left. The Void Ray is still alive as well that is not being targeted. It can't be targeted. And ShowTime's own Warp Prism about to go down too, taking away any micro that he could do to respond to this. He is absolutely desperate to hold on. He's already down a game, and it's only a best of 3. But I think ShowTime, unfortunately, have a waste of 3 hours. Not going to get any points, not going to get any money. But we'll get some practice against Neeb. GG. Neeb with a 2-0. Despite his proxy robo kind of being slapped down. I mean, it literally died. But it provided a Warp Prism. And that is apparently the most important thing.